Sex usually refers to the physical dimensions of reproduction and bodily differences. We're talking about penises and vaginas and testicles and ovaries and sperm and eggs, hormones and other sex-based characteristics. Sexuality, on the other hand, refers to something wider, something like how humans experience desire. We're talking about the ways we feel attraction, longing, and
this desire is deeper than pleasure. Oh, something here is sacred. Yes, something here feels sacred. I love you.
If it's your first time around this neck of the woods, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. This is a space where we explore the deep roots of the ideas that quietly shape our lives, ideas that shape how we understand ourselves, how we relate to one another, and how we make meaning in our lives. Especially so during those seasons when we're trying to separate shame from intimacy. Today we begin a conversation about something that has always been a part of human life, but has not always been easy to talk about: sex. Now, most people who spend time here have already developed a sensitivity to what I sometimes call spiritual noise. You can recognize it a mile off. The inflated certainty, the recycled slogans, the emotional pressure disguised as clarity, and you frankly quietly step away from that stuff. There is a lot of cultural, religious, and personal noise around the subject of sex. So here is what we'll do. Instead of adding more noise to the conversation around sexuality, we'll take a different approach, because you and I understand that what gives life is best approached slowly, not to settle questions too quickly, but to recover a sense of perspective about how human beings have been living with the erotic as a part of their meaning-making systems since the very beginning. So rather than trying to say everything at once, this conversation will unfold in 3 parts. And this is the first conversation in a 3-part exploration. So today we pause long enough to return to the earliest human efforts to make sense of the body and sexuality. Because from the very beginning, sexuality was part of how human beings understood life itself. And when we go back to those beginnings, we discover they were shaped not by fear, but by meaning. Now, let's clarify something right off the bat. Sex usually refers to the physical dimensions of reproduction and bodily differences. We're talking about penises and vaginas and testicles and ovaries and sperm and eggs, hormones and other sex-based characteristics. Sexuality, on the other hand, refers to something wider, something like how humans experience desire. We're talking about the ways we feel attraction, longing, and intimacy. Sexuality deals with how societies organize relationships. We're talking about marriages, partnerships, family, and even kinship structures. Sexuality can refer to how cultures assign meaning to the body. Ideas of beauty, modesty, gender, and even erotic symbolism. Sexuality can refer to how communities regulate belonging and continuity. We're talking about conversations about who is included, who inherits, and who carries responsibility. In short, sex is biological, while sexuality is mostly cultural. This distinction between sex and sexuality is one that we use today because it helps us understand the history of the body with a little more clarity. But earlier communities did not experience these as separate categories. For them, the physical body, desire, relationship, and belonging were all woven together as part of what it meant to be human. If we go back, way back before humans wrote theology, before creeds, before institutions, the cave paintings and figurines people made often intentionally depicted bodies and features we associate with sexuality. Some of the earliest surviving images of human life include scenes of intercourse, of pregnancy, and prominently depicted sexual anatomy. For example, rock paintings in the Serra de Capivara National Park in Brazil, dating back roughly 10,000 years, include explicit depictions of sexual activity. These were not just decorations, they were ways of making sense of life itself, how life begins, how it continues, and how the human body participates in that flow. Now, as human communities became more settled and formed larger social worlds, sexuality slowly began carrying more than biological meaning. It became a language through which people explained life itself, through which they explained belonging and continuity, and humanity's place within the cosmos. Across Mesopotamia, South Asia, and many indigenous traditions of North America, creation was often depicted through relationships between transcendent beings. These stories were not primarily trying to explain biology. They were trying to explain connection, how humans fit into the world and within one another. And in many of these traditions, the language of relationship included the language of sexuality. Across all of these traditions, sexuality was not treated as decorative or merely private. It was connected to how they understood the sacredness of life itself. And once sexuality begins carrying that kind of meaning, not only connected to pleasure but to belonging and social continuity, it naturally begins shaping family structures, inheritance systems, and communal responsibility. As societies became more structured, sexuality became not only a cosmic or divine language, but also a social one. It shaped laws and rituals and family structures and the ways people understood their place in the community. In early Mesopotamia, for example, legal codes and temple practices regulated sexuality in ways that reflected the broader social and religious order. Marriage, inheritance, and kinship were all embedded in an understanding that sexual activity carried consequences far beyond the individuals involved. Across several civilizations, one theme reoccurs. Sexuality was never considered merely a private or base matter. It was a lens through which people understood identity, responsibility, belonging, and the sacredness of life itself. Sex was social, spiritual, and cultural all at once. Sex was frankly human. Over thousands of years, sexuality has carried many layers of meaning, and even today, our sexual lives remain intertwined with these historical threads. This brings us to a natural and urgent question. How did something so deeply woven into human meaning become surrounded by silence, anxiety, and control in so many communities today? When it comes to sex, how and why was meaning dialed down while control was dialed up? And that shift is the story we'll trace in part 2. But as per the norm in these parts, if you'd like to sit a little longer with this reflection, the extended reflection is available on Patreon. I'll leave the link in the description below. Until then, thank you for being here, because understanding how our bodies, relationships, and inherited stories and ideas about sexuality shape us is part of learning how to live with wisdom.
Make love to me, hold me close, hold me slow, body and soul. Intimacy was never just touch, it was the soul learning how to speak a language older than time. This desire is deeper than pleasure. This is more than sex, more than physical. Something here is sacred. Yes, something here feels sacred. I love you.